Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wilson County Historical Museum and our third Wednesday Museum After Hours. This week we're going to be talking about Lloyd Bunch and his greenhouse. Many of you listening may have memories of his son Rex and Grace Bunch, and the years that they had the greenhouse. So we're going to be talking and learning about that. Notice that on my poster here it says established 1904. That date may or may not be correct. I'll address that. Again, welcome. I'm Leanne Giffens, a volunteer here, and we're sure glad that you're joining in with us. Bunch Greenhouse, Sharp's Flower Basket, and Fredonia Floral were all operated on the land east of Lincoln School on 8th Street between Jackson and Van Buren. Lloyd C. Bunch first began a flower business in Fredonia in 1905. So different accounts give different dates. A block west at the corner of 8th and Jackson. By 1907, he was one of the first to buy land east of the school site in a new development called the Boulevard Addition. As part of his purchase, he agreed to plant flowers in a large median down the middle of today's Van Buren. It was then called Washington Boulevard. He continued this large garden in the street for several decades. This explains why this tiny street east of Lincoln School is so wide after the planters were later removed and paved over. The greenhouse flourished for many years, becoming a major wholesale supplier of poinsettias for a large clientele. The business continued under his son, Rex Bunch, until he retired. Others operated the store, with most of the greenhouses being demolished as they aged. The last building had been empty for many years before it was demolished in 2022. So we're going to show you some early pictures of the greenhouse. I think these two are probably taken about the same time period, but that one to me that you're looking at now is really interesting because you see there are just not very many trees around there. It's rather bare. You don't see very many houses. So this is very early history. And here's the second one. A few more plantings around that one. Not all sources agree, of course, on this date that it was established. Lloyd Bunch's obituary states that it was established in 1904. And notice in the 1905 Wilson County Citizen, sharing Lloyd's plans to establish the business and other accounts implied that 1907 was a beginning date. That says, this is from August 18, 1905, Fredonia is going to have a small greenhouse. Lloyd Bunch, who drives the express wagon, is fitting up a place for one at his home in the northeast part of town on 8th Street. He has placed his order for cut flowers and other supplies and will soon be ready for business. So that's 1905. I guess it depends on if you count the time that you spend planning your business as the beginning date or when you actually have plants on site. Now you're going to be looking at Wilson County Citizen ad from 1907. And this is when he first started a block west at 8th and Jackson. And you see he has cabbage plants advertised 10 cents per 100, tomato plants 25 cents per 100, sweet potatoes 20 cents per 100, and rose plants. So he was selling not just blooming plants, but produce as well, produce plants. The Washington Boulevard that is mentioned is not the current Washington Street, but instead it is today's Van Buren Street between 9th and 10th. The name did not last long, but the area was still called the Boulevard Addition. And as I've said, for many years that flower bed was planted in the center of the street. Next I have an inside view of the greenhouse. That is not a very clear picture, but you can kind of see the structure of it. I think that date on that photo might be 1910. We know that for many years he advertised poinsettias for sale. That was a popular Christmas plant. And that ad says, "A house full of them for Christmas." Also a complete line of other blooming plants. A nice blooming plant best carries the Christmas spirit and is the cheapest present you can send. We have grown 2,000 poinsettias for the wholesale trade this year. They are a pretty sight, and I want you to see them before I begin to ship. So come to the greenhouse Saturday the 11th and see a sight you never saw before. And this was from a 1915 ad. And this next picture, you will see what the inside of the greenhouse looks like. Can you just imagine all of those in red? This was, of course, before the time when there were hybrids and you had all the various colors that we have now. He also advertised heavily for Mother's Day. And here is an ad for Mother's Day flowers. And it's interesting to me that this was 1910, and the tradition was established then that if your mother had passed already, you were to wear a white flower, and if your mother was living, you would wear a bright flower. So I don't know exactly when that tradition was started, but it certainly was familiar to me in the 1960s, so I think that has lasted for quite a long while. Well, surely a highlight of Lloyd Bunch's career came in 1922 when Fredonia hosted the convention of the Kansas State Florists Association that August. The March 31, 1922 issue of the Southern Florist and Nurseryman magazine highlights the prominence of Lloyd Bunch as well as the attributes of Fredonia. The article in that magazine was entitled "Fredonia, Where the Kansans Meet" by George Spencer. Following brief article by the president of the Fredonia Chamber of Commerce describes Fredonia in such terms that we believe it will be hard for any florist in Kansas or adjoining states to read it and not be eager to attend the state convention there on August 3 and 4. A place of only 4,000, Fredonia is a city beautiful and the seat of substantial industrial enterprises. The convention of the Kansas State Florists Association, which will be held in our little city on the 3rd and 4th of August, will bring to our town a large number of people whose business and training are bound to have developed in them special ideas and ideals with regard to what a beautiful town or city should be. A goodly number of our visitors will be coming from larger cities, towns whose size and wealth permit a large and beautiful parks, magnificent and costly homes, splendid streets and drives, large and commodious public buildings. These people will not expect to find much in so small a town as Fredonia that will stand in either beauty or progress. Yet we believe they will agree, after looking over our city, that Fredonia is one of the most beautiful and progressive towns in the entire state. And we are looking forward to the coming of our guests with great pleasure. We boast of a population of only about 4,000, and we have very few wealthy citizens, yet we claim to have more beautiful homes with well-kept lawns and surroundings, more beautiful shade trees, and more paved streets than any other town of our size in the state. Fredonia probably has the finest drive to be found in the state. This drive is a gift to our city from B.E. Ladow and winds around and over one of the largest mounds, of which we have two. The drive climbs the mound to the very top, which is over 200 feet above the town, from where a wonderful view of the surrounding country may be had. Fredonia has the best swimming pool in the state. The pool was built under the auspices of the Brotherhood class of the Methodist Church and is for the free use of all the children of the city. Now, just an aside there, this would be the old swimming pool, which is was in the location of now ABC Park and also the bank across from the Methodist Church. We also have one of the finest and best equipped motor tourist camps between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains. The buildings of the camp are located in our city park, and here the tourists are furnished gas and other fuel for cooking purposes, shower baths, dressing rooms, eating and cooking rooms. In fact, everything the tourists could ask for in the way of conveniences, and everything is free. The Chamber of Commerce quarters are far finer and larger than those of the largest cities of the state. Fredonia is the county seat of Wilson County, and our courthouse park is as beautiful as trees, flowers, and green lawns can make it. Our city park is small and just in the making. One of the most notable and unique features of the business streets is the urn of flowers in front of each business house. Fredonia is served by 3 railroads, the Frisco, Santa Fe, and Missouri Pacific. And those who drive to Fredonia in cars will find that Wilson County has the best roads to be found anywhere. There is more brick manufactured here than in any other town in the state. The Fredonia Brick Works, making several kinds of high-class face brick, and the Excelsior Brick Company, which manufactures common building brick, are the largest plants in the state in their line of production. We have the only linseed oil mill in the state, and the largest glass factory is here, as well as one of the best equipped and largest cement plants. Fredonia has 3 printing plants that specialize in bank stationery, whose products go to every state in the United States. One of the Aaron Poultry Company's large packing plants is located here. And we have elevators, grist mills, wholesale grocery, fruit, and produce houses. A survey of our industries would not be complete without naming those of our florists, the Fredonia Floral Company and Lloyd C. Bunch. The Fredonia Floral Company confines its business to the local and surrounding territory. Mr. Bunch does a local retail business and specializes in plant growing for wholesale, numbering almost every florist in the adjacent states among his customers. It is through his efforts that the state convention is to be held in Fredonia this year, and we pledge our best efforts to make the visit of the florists of Kansas a pleasant and profitable one. Wow, isn't that a glowing description of Fredonia? And that was in 1922, and here just a little over 100 years later, we could aspire to some of the attributes that they were attributing to Fredonia at that time, and how successful and profitable and beautiful a place that it was. And that really set some lofty goals for us. Well, this article went on to also note that all exhibit space was taken. Frank M. Robinson, Secretary of the Kansas City Convention Bureau, has announced that every foot of space for the SAF convention has been sold. Every device used by the florist will be shown. In addition, there will be new and rare species of flowers exhibited, for besides the major meeting, there will be minor ones of the American Sweet Pea Society, the American Rose Society, and about 25 similar organizations. In addition to the 1,500 or more leading American florists and horticulturists who will attend, there will be hundreds of flower devotees who will come to hear the many discussions and attend the lectures on flower and garden culture. Invitations have been issued by William L. Rock, chairman of the local committee, to every college having courses in horticulture and flower raising, asking that their students be urged to attend the convention to see firsthand the work that is being done by leaders in the profession. An elaborate entertainment program for visiting florists has been arranged. Reduced fares have been granted by the railroads on the certificate plan. Now, with that many people coming to town and a small town of 4,000, I have some questions. But it goes on to explain. Since hotels in town could only accommodate about 60 of the guests, local homes were asked to help house the extra people. The Chamber of Commerce rooms, located above today's Ladau Spawn, hosted most of the events. Fredonia underwent many beautification efforts leading up to this event, including work on the West Park east of Salt Creek. The shelter house was built with most materials donated by the cement plant. It was part of a tourist camp that was becoming common in area towns at the time. Cannas were planted in several large beds in the park, at the high school, courthouse, and around the square, and tubs in front of the stores. The new swimming pool was just completed where the ABC Park stands today, and the Skyline Drive on the South Mound was improved, graded, and oiled. Just imagine Fredonia accommodating a 2-day convention of over 1,500 visitors today. Would we be up to the challenge? Well, shortly after World War II, Lloyd's son Rex became active in the business. Rex held a degree in floriculture from the University of Illinois, and besides the customary retail business in Fredonia, he did a large wholesale business in poinsettias and other plants. He was assisted in the operation by his wife, Grace. Typically, April showers bring out the flowers and flower purchases. Particularly when Lloyd's son, Rex Bunch, ran the floral shop and greenhouse, pansies were purchased by children for a dime for their mothers or teachers. In 1971, a new entrance was completed. This directed all retail sales through that entrance rather than through the residential entrance. This structure would ultimately be the last building standing, ultimately housing Sharp's Flower Basket and Fredonia Floral. And of course, that structure is no longer there. By 1972, Rex Bunch was shipping thousands of poinsettias and geraniums from the greenhouses, making the construction of a new 28 by 86 feet greenhouse necessary. The January 13, 1972 Wilson County Citizen article stated, "Room was made by clearing out one house and an old coal shed left over from the days when the greenhouse boiler was fired with coal. He said the new greenhouse would have a new type of clear span and uses plastic plates instead of glass. The plastic plates won't break and cement dust won't gather on them as it does on glass. The new house also has automatic heating and cooling. It will be heated by steam-heated air, which is forced through blowers into plastic tubes, which will run the length of the house. Holes spaced every 3 feet circulate the air. When temperatures reach the thermostat setting, the heat will kick off and substitute fresh air instead. The new house will be used for general production of flowers." In 1974, a newspaper account was entitled "Potted Geraniums to Wichita Market." Several loads of potted geraniums leave the Bunch greenhouse each week during the peak season for bedding plants to supply 6 garden centers in area towns for the heavy spring demand. Rex Bunch, florist, is a wholesaler for the spring geranium and for the Christmas favorite, the poinsettia. Garden centers and flower shops in Wichita, Bartlesville, and other area towns take about 50% of all plants that are prepared for market by the 2-generation florist shop in Fredonia. Wichita markets, according to Mr. Bunch, buy the bulk of his plants. Unrooted cuttings are shipped from California producers to the greenhouse, where the cuttings are placed in pots and nourished to the proper stage for marketing. Mr. Bunch noted that continual spraying and care is required to fight the pesky spiders and the lacewing moth that infests the plants and lays eggs in the blooms. Leaf rot became a hazard during damp weather. For a number of years, Bunch's greenhouse provided a spectacular opening for the Christmas holiday season by opening their shop and greenhouse to the public to view the 12,000 poinsettias which they grew each year. During the season, their trucks made almost daily trips to Wichita, Tulsa, and to the airports there and at Tri-City to ship poinsettias. Lloyd Bunch, who was born May 8, 1885, was a prominent businessman for over 60 years and died February 11, 1967. He is buried in the Fredonia Cemetery. During his lifetime of work in the florist industry, Mr. Bunch was progressive and served several terms as secretary and president of the Kansas State Florists Association, of which he was a charter member. He was member of the First Methodist Church, the local Masonic bodies, and the Order of Eastern Star. He married Hazel McFeeters, January 29, 1916. Their son Rex Bunch was born in Fredonia, May 11, 1917, and he died August 27, 2001, at the age of 84. He married Grace Hall on August 22, 1940. Rex was a member of the First United Methodist Church, Lions Club International, the Masonic Lodge, the Kansas chapter of the American Florist Association, and the American Amateur Radio Relay League. He served on the local school board, the Fredonia Housing Authority, and was a city councilman. Grace passed away January 31, 2002. Both she and Rex are buried in the Fredonia Cemetery. They had lived in Fredonia for most of their married lives. They owned and operated Bunch Greenhouse for 45 years, retiring in 1980. One thing that is some of you may know about Rex Bunch is that he had quite an adventure with a ship that he built along with Lynn Beale and I think a gentleman named George Baker called The Flying Cloud. And he had written a book talking about that adventure sailing on the Mississippi. So the museum has several copies of that. I'm sure the library does, and there are people in the community that have that. But that adventure is a story for another day. Now, before I wrap this up, I should say it should be noted that Bunch Greenhouse was not the only one in town during this time. Glass Flower Shop and Greenhouse, initially owned and operated by Mr. and Mrs. James R. Glass at 226 North 8th, began operation in 1905, so about the same time period, and continued for many years. Son Max and his wife Gladys Glass took over that operation in 1936 and continued it until they sold it to Charles and Dolores Palmer in 1974. So, think of these Fredonia institutions as you enjoy your spring planting season and purchase poinsettias in the Christmas season. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.